Attention sports teams. Let us introduce you to the best fan engagement tool in the game, .vote. By getting a .vote web address for your team, you can allow fans to engage and interact with big-time decisions. In a single click, not only can fans make their opinions heard, but sports teams get a better understanding of their fans' interests. Keep your fans engaged. Simply visit GoDaddy.com today, type in the desired name of your web address, and let the voting begin.
Super Bowl 60 is set. We got some Super Bowl prop bets to go over. The Cavaliers traded for who? And the baseball betting scandal just got a whole lot worse. It's all straight ahead in a fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. Hey, yo, we're off and running. Fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. Lots to talk about, plenty to get through on this edition of the pod, episode number 75. We will get into Super Bowl 60. The countdown is almost complete. We'll look at the Super Bowl. We'll look back at the NBA trade deadline, and then we will once again focus in on the baseball betting scandal, the one involving the Guardians pitcher Emmanuel Clase. But before we get to any of that, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you're taking the podcast in on. Like, rate, share the episode if you can, but most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Only takes a second, and best of all, it is completely free. All right, let's get into Super Bowl 60 because we got the Patriots, we got the Seahawks, and the waiting game is just about over. And it feels like the Super Bowl has not gotten the amount of hype that generally the big game gets. And maybe part of that is it's not established quarterback stars at their individual teams. It is new teams, even though it's franchises that have been there before. And even though both organizations have tasted success, these were the best teams during the regular season, so I don't know what anybody's complaining about. It's not like this is a fluky run by either of these teams. These were the two best teams, so I am looking forward to the game. And, you know, for the Seahawks, a lot of the attention has been focused on Sam Darnold, obviously. But this is the chance for the Seahawks organization, and most importantly, the fans, to make up for the single worst decision in the history of the Super Bowl. Pete Carroll's decision 12 years ago to throw from the 1-yard line. The pass, of course, got picked off by Malcolm Butler. Instead of running it in with Marshawn Lynch, it goes down as even now, 12 years later, there's nothing else in competition for the dumbest single decision in Super Bowl history. Two things are indisputable when it comes to the Super Bowl. And I've not seen all 60 Super Bowls, but I've seen enough of them to know. One thing, Pete Carroll's decision to throw from the 1-yard line, if for no other reason, the Patriots knew it was coming. They knew that the play was going to be. That's the only reason why Malcolm Butler was able to pick off that pass that quickly. So yes, that was the single worst decision. And then number two, the worst Super Bowl loss of all time, and it'll be tough to top this, is the Falcons blowing that 28-3 lead to the Patriots as well. For Falcons fans, that should have been the last game you ever watched Falcons football. I don't know, maybe you pick another team. How could you ever watch another game without thinking, my team blew a 28-3 lead with our greatest chance that we'll probably ever get to win a Super Bowl? How could you ever watch another game? I would say go do something else on Sundays. It's that bad of a Super Bowl loss. Even with all the Super Bowl losses, we've had 60 Super Bowl losers after Sunday. The Falcons one is still by far the worst. But you know, what's interesting about the coverage of this Super Bowl is it's being presented as if this is now two new perennial contenders, almost like these are two teams that are budding dynasties in some way. And I get it. They're kind of unknown quantities, right? Seahawks, great season, but year one with Sam Darnold, year two with their new head coach. The Patriots, year one with their new head coach, year two with their quarterback. And while this might turn out to be the case, history tells us that's probably not going to be the case. History tells us that this, for one team on Sunday, this will be their best chance to win a Super Bowl with these players. And I know that sounds harsh, but we always make it out like when there's a surprising team, and this year it's two surprising teams, as if this is now the new trend. History says to you, if you believe that to be the case, slow down. That's probably not going to be the way it turns out. And already, this Super Bowl matchup has broken records. This is the most unlikely Super Bowl in the history of the NFL. Before the season, both the Patriots and Seahawks were 60-1 or worse to win a Super Bowl this year. Of course, New England won just the 4 games last year. Seattle, while they were better, They're handing the keys to, I think, still kind of an unproven Sam Darnold, despite the success he had last year in Minnesota. Still didn't really know what to expect with Darnold in a new situation, whether or not the Seahawks would be able to get that same level of production. And now these two unlikely teams to start the season are playing in the Super Bowl. So this has been the most outlier kind of season in the NFL. Just take a look at the playoffs just themselves, right? The Panthers made the playoffs. The Jaguars made the Bears made the playoffs, while the Lions didn't, the Chiefs didn't, the Ravens didn't. Right? So we talk about established quarterback. Patrick Mahomes not there. Lamar Jackson not there. Joe Burrow, great quarterback, not there. So, the idea, even I think coming into this year, but certainly 2 years ago, that Sam Darnold would be the starting quarterback, the first quarterback from that 2018 draft class to make a Super Bowl, people would have looked at you and laughed. Now, people want to make it out like, oh, no, I always believed in Sam. No, they didn't. Nobody was saying this 2 years ago after you'd bounced around the league everywhere before that year in Minnesota. And you'd have to look at this year as this was a very topsy-turvy outlier kind of season. Teams that were supposed to be successful, just take a look back to last year. We thought the Lions were going to be a perennial playoff team. They weren't. Washington was on the verge of something with Jaden Daniels. They weren't. So this will go down as one of the wildest NFL seasons in league history. When you go through the regular season, you go through the playoffs, you go through what the preseason odds to what actually turned out to be the case. And if there was something that you were positive was going to happen this year, it probably didn't happen. So the idea that this is now the start of two new perennial year in, year out franchise, I can understand why you might feel that way, but I think you're being a prisoner of the moment. The history tells us that at least one of these teams, this is their one chance. So the last time we had this unpredictable of a Super Bowl, you could go back to 82, Niners, Bengals. Both teams had won 6 games the year before, so a very unlikely Super Bowl. And the 49ers did turn out to be a dynasty, but that's kind of the exception that proves the rule. I think that as we move on now, it's going to be harder and harder to put together dynasties. And John Madden always had the great line when teams would lose in the playoffs, it's not just the pain of the loss, it's the recognition of all the hard work you're going to have to put back in to just get to the same point the following year. And most teams don't get back that following year. And just take a look at how topsy-turvy the league has been this year. This offseason, 10 different head coaches. A third of the league is going to be breaking in new head coaches next year. Quarterbacks are changing zip codes more now than ever before. So I just think that the being able to win year in and year out and be that perennial team is going to become harder and harder. So the idea that these two teams, both teams, have now arrived as perennial contenders, I just think it's being a prisoner of the moment and not having any recognition of how topsy-turvy the league is every single year. Could these teams be the start of new dynasties? I guess it could feel that way, especially with the Patriots now with Drake May in year 2. But this is likely the best chance for at least one of these teams to win a Super Bowl. And there's a very good chance neither team gets back there anytime soon, right? Like the amount of things that need to go your way. The Patriots, as great as they were, take a look at that schedule they had this year. Everything broke right. And that's not going to be the case next year. Now, maybe they'll be better next year. Maybe they'll be able to add more talent next year. But just because the Patriots just had a dynasty does not mean that they're on the verge of another one. It generally doesn't happen that way. And next year, you would figure some of those big-name quarterbacks who are missing this year, they're not going to be missing next year. Even if Patrick Mahomes is not ready for week 1 of the season, he will be back. So I would say if you're a Seahawks fan, if you're a Patriots fan, enjoy this Super Bowl. Maybe it is the start of a new era, but I think it's a better sign that just how topsy-turvy the league is now, year in and year out, it is completely unpredictable for the most part. And I would say this might be your best chance, either for the Seahawks or the Patriots, or maybe for even both. Because think back, as I mentioned about the Seahawks team, that Pete Carroll with the mind-boggling decision to throw it from the 1-yard line when he's got Marshawn Lynch, that was already 12 years ago. You know, that team still had a ton of talent. They were coming off a Super Bowl win. They were going for another one, and they have not been back since. Think about how much has changed since the last time the Seahawks have been in a Super Bowl. So maybe the Seahawks are now going to be this new powerhouse. Maybe the Patriots are on the verge of a new dynasty, but the odds are better that neither are. So I would say on Sunday, take your best shot because very well likely it will be the only shot you get anytime soon. Okay, let's move on to the important part of the Super Bowl, the betting angle of the Super Bowl. And when this game first got finalized, Seahawks and Patriots, I looked at it like I think most people did. Seahawks, better all-around team, don't really have a major weakness, played in a tougher conference, had a tougher road, saw that the Seahawks were -4.5, and I said, yeah, I think that they're just the better team. Give me the, I'll lay the 4.5 and give me Seattle. But then something strange happened. Everyone agreed. Everyone agrees that the Seahawks are going to win. So when everyone agrees, I'm sorry, I have to go the other way. I don't want New England to win. The last thing I want to see is the Patriots celebrating it. Ugh, those fans, they have not suffered nearly enough since the last dynasty. So I don't want to see them win. But if everybody's going one way, I got to go the other. And everybody's talking about how great the Seahawks defense is. Patriots defense has been just as good. And it feels like to me, the Seahawks, even though they're talented on offense and don't really have a weakness, they need Jackson Smith and Jigba to be a major focus. I don't really feel like the Patriots have that one guy. I feel like they're a more balanced team where there's not one thing that you have to take away. So I would say, yeah, I got to take the Patriots. I got to take the points in this case. So in terms of some prop bets, I'm looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba. His receiving line, I'm looking at under 94.5. I also like Jackson Smith and Jigba over half a rushing yard. I think the key to the New England game plan is clearly, don't have to be a rocket scientist, figure out a way to limit JSN as much as humanly possible. Because if you don't do that, I mean, if there's going to be a blowout, it's almost certainly going to be the Seahawks blowing out the Patriots. So I think the Pats are going to try to limit him as much as possible. It's going to be a low-scoring game overall. So give me the under on his receiving yards. And I can see a situation where the Seahawks and JSN are frustrated in the first half, so they figure out a way to get the ball in his hands, and maybe he runs a reverse, maybe it's a handoff. I don't know what it is, but just half a yard, I think they got to figure out a way to get the ball in his hands one way or another. So give me the over on the half-yard rushing. Now, on the New England side of things, I like Hunter Henry to have a quietly effective game. Now, his over-under in receptions is 3.5. His yardage is 38.5. If you're looking to attack this Seattle defense, and look, tight ends would probably be the way. Now, their pass defense really doesn't have a glaring weakness, but what it does have is a tendency. They are 16th in DVOA against tight end targets this season, which doesn't jump off the page at you, but they've also allowed the 5th most yards to tight ends this season. So I think that combination kind of tells you a lot. The Seahawks defense, like most defenses, they want to limit the big play. So you're not going to be able, I don't think, to beat them deep, although we shall see if they take a chance there with Drake May or not. But I think that what their defense wants to do is to limit you to underneath throws, those uncomfortable short throws. And that's kind of where tight ends live. And I think that that's where Hunter Henry is going to live in this game. So I like the over on his receiving yards. And I don't think he's going to have a monster game, but I could see 5 catches for 45 yards, something along those lines. So those are the two prop bets. I like the under in this game. And I said I like the Patriots. Give me the Patriots plus the points. They win it 23-20 in a low-scoring affair, and they take another Super Bowl, and we got to live through the Patriots, and more importantly, the Patriot fans being back on top. You think that you don't want to watch the halftime show? I don't want to watch the postgame show if that happens. If the Patriots win this, that channel will get changed almost immediately from the final gun of the game. I'm not watching any of that celebration, the trophy celebration, the confetti. Yuck, I don't want to watch any of it. All right, little baseball, and boy, spring training cannot get here soon enough. Pitchers and catchers can't get here soon enough, but we got an update on the suspended Guardians pitcher Emmanuel Clase's legal issues. Of course, that case with him throwing pitches to benefit bettors. And when I say an update, the news is not good for one Emmanuel Clase. So the story came out the other day. Federal prosecutors, now they had originally charged him with 9 games in the indictment. But now, according to a court filing from the attorney representing his teammate and alleged co-conspirator Luis Ortiz, the government is actually now accusing Clase of manipulating pitches in 48 games. Not 9, 48 games for a reliever who's throwing in basically 70 games a year? So to me, that's not what it might have been presented as 9 games, like this was a lapse in judgment or a momentary thing. That's a pattern, man. And it's so much of a pattern that Ortiz, his co-conspirator, is wanting to get his case removed. He doesn't want to be tied to Clase in any way. Now, again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. It's allegedly, but it really does feel like Emmanuel Clase failed an IQ test. I mean, you have to be just so colossally dumb to have been engaged in this on this scale and think that you would never get caught. And what matters here is that I think that people rush to the same lazy conclusions about, well, you see, this is what happens when you legalize sports betting. And when this case first broke, I brought this point up. I'll continue to hammer it home until people get it. No, the reason we know about this case is because of legalized sports betting. With legalized sports betting, every bet is tracked. Every prop is locked. Every weird betting spike lights up somebody's computer screen somewhere. Like these sports books, they have teams of people working on this kind of pattern recognition. And that's how this stuff, these suspicious pitches, get flagged. This is how it ends up with federal prosecutors and not just some rumors on a Reddit page someplace. Legal gambling did not cause this. Legal gambling is what caught this. That's the difference. Now, the actual problem here is much simpler. And it's not pretty, but this simply goes back to stupidity and greed. And you can break down that combination any way you want. But Emmanuel Clase was set to make $6 million in 2026. In 2027, he had a $10 million club option, which they would certainly pick up. He had life-changing money and basically threw it away pitch by pitch. And that's the part that should stop sports leagues, sports fans in their tracks. This was not some guy who was hanging on the edge of a roster. This was not a guy who was living, hand to mouth. This was an elite closer in baseball making millions of dollars per season. So this is just simply greed and stupidity. And how you fix this, it's an uncomfortable answer, but you don't fix this with more laminated signs in the clubhouse. You don't do this with more meetings or more warnings. Everybody knows that this is illegal. The knowledge aspect, it's not like this was, I'm not allowed to do that. No. So the only way you do this is you fix it with consequences. And clearly, Emmanuel Clase's major league career, no matter how this turns out, is over. He is not going to get another chance. He is going to be toxic after this, even if he does not get found guilty in a court of law. But if he is convicted, I think that my feeling has not changed on this. He has to spend time in prison. Not because you're trying to make an example of him per se, but because an example needs to be made by someone. And you have to send a clear message that manipulating games, even in this fashion, even if it's only a pitch, even if it's not the outcome of the game, even individual bets, it is not just cheating baseball, it is criminal, it is fraud, and it comes with real consequences of not just, hey, you're going to lose your job. Because if the message is, hey, worst case, you're done playing, that's not enough of a deterrent, clearly. Like he knew that if he got caught doing this, there had to be ramifications. He just thought he would never get caught. So for someone to be doing this that openly 48 times shows you that this is probably not the only guy who has done this. Now, he's the only guy that's been charged along with Luis Ortiz. But if you don't come down with the hammer on this, and this is not a baseball issue, this is a legal issue, but baseball clearly will not allow this guy to play in the majors if he's found guilty, and he'll have bigger issues than playing in the majors. But I think that the only way that you actually have some ramifications of this is if the people that are involved go to prison. It's not enough just to lose your career or to lose some money. It has to be that you send a message. This is not just cheating the game of baseball. This is fraud. This is illegal. And there are ramifications to that. And those ramifications are that you spend time in prison. So this story's not going anywhere. And probably this is not the last time that we're going to hear about this kind of thing happening in baseball and basketball and football and whatever. But at least for this one, the first time around, you have to send a message to everyone else of you don't want to be like this guy. You don't want to be like Emmanuel Clase. And I think the way you do that, not with more meetings, not with more memos, not with more signs in the clubhouse, but with actual ramifications, and that means prison time for Emmanuel Clase if he is found guilty.
Remember college? Well, now, college is over, and here comes your student loan debt. Is your private student loan debt keeping you up at night? You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can save you thousands of dollars and get you a custom payment that you can afford. And they don't care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today.
All right, let's move on to the NBA trade deadline, which has come and gone, and Giannis stays put. No move for Ja Morant. But the biggest move, at least to me, is also the most puzzling move. Because let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers trading for James Harden. Because I don't know, the more I sit with it, the more puzzling a kind of move it is. And let's be honest, it's the most surprising big name to get moved. And usually that doesn't happen in the NBA because so much time is focused on trades and offseason and moves, and this superstar is unhappy. So Harden leaves the hometown team, his hometown team, in the middle of a kind of an inspiring turnaround type of stretch. And the Cavs move on from a player who's a decade younger, already a multiple-time All-Star, and under contract for several more years. So that alone should kind of make you pause. But for Cleveland, I think I understand what they're doing. Only time will tell. But the Cavs clearly are looking at this season as a way of kind of breaking up their core and moving on from a player in Darius Garland who's had some injury issues, and moving on to Harden, who, even though he's 36, he does put up heavy minutes and heavy production. And it's kind of the sign of a front office who's saying, you know, we got to make a move here just for the sake of making the move. So I guess I understand that logic, but here's the problem. This does not meaningfully move their or improve their championship chances this year. And that's not me saying that. That's the sports books saying that. Like, go and take a look at what their odds were before the move and after the move. And basically the sports books told you, hey, it's kind of a cool thing, but it doesn't change all that much. So Vegas, it depends on what sports book you're looking at, but their lines in terms of championship odds or playoff results did not really move all that much. So the move for the Cavs is all about right now. The longer the timeline, the worse this trade is almost certainly going to look. You're trading for a now player, 36-year-old James Harden. And I don't even know if he's a now player. He's paid like a superstar on a contending team. But even while his production is there, he's now the overpaid guy on a team, especially the Cavaliers, who I think have closed their championship window for now. And look, the Cavaliers already had a reputation of kind of melting down in the big moments. Whose idea was it to go get James Harden for those kind of moments? This dude is one of the biggest playoff chokers in the history of the sport. I mean, you can run through his postseasons where his resume is basically a highlight reel of him disappearing in the biggest moments that there are. And history tells us with James Harden, you know, when the going gets tough, James gets going, generally to another team. So will this end well in Cleveland? Almost certainly not. It never ends well with James Harden. And the idea of him being a playoff choker, that's not an unfair narrative. That is pattern recognition at this point. So if this trade, it doesn't meaningfully boost your playoff odds or your championship odds, you're trading for a player who's 36 and is probably overpaid already. How does this make any sense in a year where the East is supposed to be wide open, right? Well, I think you kind of know the answer to this, and it might not be what some fans want to hear, but I think that this lines up perfectly for the Cavaliers a year from now in this offseason to bring back LeBron James for at least one final season. And let's be honest, this idea that LeBron is not going to get a farewell tour or not want a farewell tour, this dude's ego will demand a farewell tour. And I would say the league probably wants it as well, right? LeBron has always controlled the narrative surrounding his legacy, surrounding his career. He's done that his entire career for 2 decades, right? So there's zero chance that his career ends quietly with an Instagram post somewhere. No, he is going to get all the bells and whistles. This guy is an egomaniac, and he will want the universal send-off that all the other superstars have gotten. And I'm sure the NBA will too, right? Ticket sales boost, jersey sales. I'm sure there'll be a documentary on Netflix. God forbid there's not another documentary. And LeBron did give Cleveland a championship. So if this is the payback, I think every fan would take that. That banner still matters, especially in Cleveland. It doesn't have a lot of championship banners. But, the Cavaliers are basically, if this is the move and this is the reason for the Harden move, they're basically turning over their franchise to LeBron James again. And it just feels kind of wildly counterproductive if all this building has been about trying to win a championship. Because then next season becomes about nostalgia, it becomes about the past, it becomes about celebrating LeBron one more time. And it's not about building something sustainable to kind of win a title. So if this trade is about going all in and relevance now and getting LeBron in a year from now to win the headlines, all right, I guess. But if the Cavs want us to believe that this is about winning titles, the betting markets don't tell us that. The timeline doesn't really support that. And James Harden's history tells you that's not going to be the case either. So it's a very puzzling move. Now, in terms of what the Knicks did at the trade deadline, they pick up Jose Alvarado. You get the news shortly later that Deuce McBride is going to be out for the rest of the regular season. Look, Jose Alvarado has been around the league. You know his reputation. He is a feisty defensive presence, has a knack for pulling off steals, and the Knicks certainly could use more of a defensive presence, especially with Deuce McBride going down. And there's still enough regular season that if you're telling me he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season, to now get him back up to speed for a playoff run, I would think that that's not going to be easy to do. But as far as Alvarado's concerned, he gives you some defense in the backcourt. The Knicks don't really do all that well in terms of creating steals. He is a maven at doing that. And he's almost certainly going to be a fan favorite kind of player. The kind of player, when he's on your team, he's a pest and you love him, and he's all about heart and grit and sweat and all those type of things with the defense. And if he's on the other team, man, you hate that guy. So I think it's a smart move. And what it really shows you, and what Leon Rose, this is another example of it. And this move is a greater example of it than the big blockbuster move, like a Giannis move. The Knicks have had tons of GMs who have made the big blockbuster move, and the team was still terrible. Leon Rose shows you that self-scouting and knowing what you have and what you need, it really told in the tale of the smaller moves, of the additional ad, not trading away anything major. Jose Alvarado is not a type of player that's going to get major headlines, but the Knicks identified backcourt defense is a need for them, much more so than just going out and adding a splashy player like making a Giannis trade. Anybody can kind of do that. Anybody can sell the farm to go get a win-now player. What Leon Rose has showed you is that this dude has a plan. He is carrying it out in silence, right? You didn't really hear all that much about the Knicks. I guess you heard a little bit about Alvarado, but not all that much until the move is made. And the bigger part of it is you didn't hear really anything about Deuce McBride being hurt until after the trade was already made. And what it also shows you, and this is good news for anybody who is a fan of a perennial bad team, like the Jets are, like my Dolphins are, for whatever team that you look at and you say, well, there's no way we can win because of ownership. Ownership is just going to derail everything at every turn, right? Jets can't win because Woody Johnson is just such a bad owner. The Dolphins can't win because Stephen Ross is clueless, or the Browns, or the Raiders, or all these teams in the NFL, but really goes to any sport. What Leon Rose shows you is with the right leadership, you can turn it around. You can overcome bad ownership with the right guy. It was not that long ago, pre-Leon Rose, if you talked about the worst owners in all of sports, James Dolan would be near, if not at the top of the list. For 2 decades, everybody complained the Knicks can never win. James Dolan's just too meddlesome. He just butts in too often. It's too much. He doesn't know what he's doing. He forces trades. He forces this. He forces that. And what Leon Rose has showed you is, no, you can overcome. If James Dolan he's still the same guy, all of a sudden there's no more stories about how James Dolan is butting in and is incompetent and the Knicks can never win with him because they're winning. Now, they haven't won a championship. They haven't got to a finals. They got to do that this year. But Leon Rose has been able to overcome that narrative that you can't win with James Dolan. Like if I had told you at any point before Leon Rose had got here that there'll be a time where the Knicks are playing in the playoffs and James Dolan will be celebrated outside of Madison Square Garden, you would have thought I was Looney Tunes. But that's what happened last year. So for the Jet fans who feel like, you know what, we'll never win with Woody Johnson, it's not true. For me, with the Dolphins, with Stephen Ross, you have to hire the right people. Now, Woody Johnson, Stephen Ross, the Raiders, the Browns, they've not done a good job of that. But it's not because it can't be done. It can be done, and Leon Rose with the Knicks is proving it year in and year out, and I like what the Knicks did at the trade deadline. No big move for Giannis. That will still be a conversation point after this season is over, and the Knicks' odds improve. They did not have anything to really give up to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, they'll still not have the best offer after this season, but if this Knicks season does not end with either a title or at least a trip to the NBA Finals, that Giannis conversation will start up again, probably even before the season ends, but certainly however the Knicks season ends, without a title or without a finals appearance, that conversation will be quickly followed by the end of the Knicks season. But that's a conversation for another day. The Knicks still have everything in front of them. They're still the most talented team in the Eastern Conference, and the reason for that is Leon Rose, and he has proven that you can overcome bad ownership. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. If you've not done it already, hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you're taking the podcast in on, and we will be back next week. Enjoy Super Bowl 60, and we'll see you next time on Gordon Damer on Sports.